Yeah, looking forward to it.
Perfect. Okay. I think we're live.
Awesome.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today, joining myself and Wasim. Today we have Toine from 256 Heat. Toine's been part of the Canadian Bitcoin Conference the last number of years and doing some great stuff in the mining space. So welcome, Toine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I think he's a heat punk, I think is what they're called, right? Is it?
A heat punk? That's
Heat
a good
punk.
name, yeah.
Let's find out more about that.
Yeah, perfect. So listen, this is kind of part of the series we're having in the run up to the conference, and bringing on people who will be talking at the conference, doing demonstrations, workshops. So it's great to have you today. So obviously we talked a little bit before the podcast about our backgrounds. Myself and Wasim are technical. We're engineers originally, but we'll talk a bit about probably the applications, and then the technical side and the business case, and that's kind of the stuff that I want to get into as well. So okay, so I've first question for you. So what give us an idea of your background, Toine, just that kind of led you into Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a very technical inclination. I've always been kind of a bit of an autodidact. I like to solve problems, and there's nothing better for me than a problem I can't solve. I really kind of dig in, and I take it personally when I can't solve a problem. It's like a vendetta. So it makes me well suited to figure out some of these very niche technical type of problems. The one that has me pretty much obsessed for the last few years is how to take these big, loud, heavy, noisy pieces of hardware that are miraculous in what they do. I mean, they're doing trillions of guesses per second if you think about what it is they're actually doing. And take the waste heat, which is a byproduct from the Bitcoin mining process, and use it as the primary product in a residential or commercial heating application. So I use the waste heat from Bitcoin miners to heat homes. The revenue that comes in from the mining pays for the electricity usage, or since you're acquiring this Bitcoin without going outside of your monthly budget expenditure, it allows you to kind of become like a hardened hodler, because your cost basis is essentially zero. So you're not looking at, oh, I got to sell if it goes below this, or doing this really allows you to perceive it as money, because it's not there. If you don't have a cost basis, it's not an investment, and it allows you to kind of conceptually think about it differently in your mind. So that's kind of some of the things I like about this what I'm doing.
If I can drill into that a little bit, right? So you're obviously a Bitcoiner, right? And you like to tinker and like to solve complex problems, but at some point there must have been some sort of change that it went in your mind that said, okay, I need to kind of deploy a Bitcoin miner. You went from Bitcoiner to Bitcoin miner. Yeah. And then I'm curious to understand, like, a little bit, like, was there a specific moment that kind of got you thinking, there may be something interesting here to actually make this a bit of a business, right? Was it like some sort of cold Canadian winter, a power bill that you paid, some broken control board? They said, man, I can fix these and make money out of it. Or was it just heat reuse that went to a business idea? Like, was there a point that you said, this is an interesting business idea as well, as opposed to just being a Bitcoiner and a miner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a Bitcoiner, I think since at least 2019 is when I've been, it's like doing my regular buys and whatever on Kraken back in the day with the prepaid Visa MasterCard. So you didn't need KYC back in the day. So that was kind of nice. And then because I've always been technical and hands-on, I like to build things. I've always been kind of an automotive junkie. I've always fixed my own cars and things like that. So the lack of tangibility in Bitcoin was something that I struggled with, because my technical skills with regards to like computer networking and things like that were definitely, back in 2021 when I started mining, were definitely not as good as they are now. And it was one of those things where it's like, this is a problem, I need to solve it. And it's allowing me to put my hands on something physical related to Bitcoin, because up until then I hadn't run a node. I hadn't had a reason to really. Like I was just like, okay, I can already kind of do this. But then when I started mining, I saw the benefits of running hardware. And so the first foray into that was I just got a miner for my home. It was a What's Miner M30S++, which is the weirdest name ever. It's like they didn't really think ahead. But anyway, it was a great unit. It made 3,600 watts. It was screaming loud, 85 decibels. So you're talking about permanent hearing loss after 10 minutes of exposure. The only outlet I had to use this miner, the only 240 volt I had available, actually wasn't even available. I had to get a 0 gauge thick T wire to tee off my oven circuit. It was just sitting on my counter for a few months before I realized I had to figure out a place to put this thing. So I was hooked. I saw with 111 terahash miner, I was making something like 4 times as much Bitcoin as I am with like a new age machine today. And that's just because of difficulty adjustment and price and all that. But it sent me down the rabbit hole where I would later acquire a property, start figuring out and tinkering how to get them quieter, more efficient, all that. And then after about a year of tinkering, I went, I think I have something here that can really help people. And that's kind of the long story of how I got into mining, but saw something immediately after, I saw problems that I had to solve, and then solving those problems allowed me to utilize that waste heat, which was like a big aha moment.
So your tagline is "Get paid to heat your home,"
correct?
Which is very catchy. So walk us through, like, well, what does the actual math look like for a homeowner? What would that? So if I took an old S19, versus just like a regular space heater, like what electricity rate does this actually really work out? If you penciled it out, like what would it make economic sense? Just dive off the cliff there, Dan. Just go right off the deep end and let's see what this looks like.
Yeah. I was trying to build up to that, but go ahead.
Maybe audience.
Maybe this will be a couple. This topic will be a couple touches because
go for it.
It's a very broad question and it can be answered in a number of different ways. You said S19. Well, what kind of S19? There's about 6 flavors of S19, and they all have very different efficiency profiles and all of that. So in Ontario and Quebec, those are some of the lower electric rates in North America. You can still hash marginally profitably, if not break even, in those provinces if you do some clever things with scheduling and tweaking the overclock, underclock kind of parameters based on electricity rates as they vary throughout the time of the day. So that's one thing. The other thing is something I should mention before I go too far down this answer is the price of units. So what's interesting right now is, like, my business is catching a really big tailwind with regards to my input costs, because many of the larger publicly traded Bitcoin miners are pivoting to AI, since it's more profitable for them to use their massive infrastructure to do high frequency compute. So that's great for us, because I'm seeing the prices of used hardware, barely used hardware, dropping significantly. And something I've noticed is, so the average electricity rate in North America is about 12 cents US kilowatt hour. It's about 14.30 or 50 Canadian. As the profitability metrics for these various machines approaches break even or zero profitability at 14 cents Canadian kilowatt hour, the price basically crashes. It's like an order of magnitude from where it was when it was new. So like a $5,000 machine will become $500 in a couple of years as it becomes, break even profitability. If you're just economically mining, break even profitability means you have to turn your machine off. But if you have solar, or if you have a use case like using the heat, that means 100% free heat. So it goes from a grim scenario to one of the rosiest that you can paint, because if you have a large business or a large home and your heating expenses are a considerable portion of your monthly budget, this alleviates that in a huge way. And it does it in a way that allows you. So I target a sub 2-year ROI, and my ROI calculus is based on Bitcoin's price not appreciating. And the reason why I do that is because, you know, I would rather over deliver and be optimistic. You know, if you include the KGAR, things look really, really good. But again, if you buy on the first year of a down year, it's not going to look great. But the great thing about that is usually down years are correlated with downward difficulty adjustments. So if you're still mining, like we just had the third or fourth largest downward difficulty adjustment ever last week. It was a 10.3% or 10.5%. So anyone who's left mining on the network is getting 10% more Bitcoin for the same amount of hash rate. This is great for people like us who are, you know, the heat pumps, because we don't have a minimum price. Like even if you're getting 35% of your electricity cost back in Bitcoin, Bitcoiners know what they're getting. They know they're getting a finite, scarce asset that allows them to transact outside of the financial regulations in whatever jurisdiction you're in. And I still think that's being underpriced. I mean, just going way ahead now, my end goal with all of this is to use these devices to kind of bolster circular economies so that people can exchange goods and services outside of the system. And if everyone's got one of these units, then they have this cash flow, this treasury asset that they can use to exchange goods and services with other clients of mine through like a group chat, or like I use Coinos, and they have some plans for creating chats. But that's the whole kind of impetus for what I'm doing. Being able to kind of offload from fiat and onload to Bitcoin. And I've done it myself over the last few years. I stopped using natural gas. I'm heating 2 properties exclusively with Bitcoin miners. I have an extra half Bitcoin that I wouldn't have had just from heating 2 properties for 2.5 years. So I know that I didn't pay that much in electricity. So it's been a huge eye-opening thing for me. And my timing was good, obviously. But again, it feels like that timing is here again. It feels like 2021, price is down 50%. So the price of the hardware overshoots more than the price of Bitcoin. So buying, it's good to buy Bitcoin in the bear market, because when it comes back, you get that return. But mining equipment they get hit even harder. It's like a leveraged Bitcoin play. So buying mining hardware in the bear market is also almost equally, if not more, beneficial, just because of that dual use, getting the heat out of it. So I know it's kind of a long meandering answer, but that's hopefully there's something valuable for your listeners in there.
There's something to be said about fresh Bitcoin too, freshly minted, right? So
yeah, no KYC, no one knows about it. That's getting Bitcoin straight from the Coinbase, from the Bitcoin Coinbase, is very valuable. And I think in Canada now, with all of our draconian censorship laws that are coming through, or just got rammed through, it's going to become even more. I think we're going to trade at a massive premium for non-KYC Bitcoin in the future, just because of the exit ramps are being heavily monitored, if not blocked, and it's getting worse in Canada especially.
Yeah, I think you'll start. Someone will be made an example of, and then that'll that'll be the dominoes, and then everybody will be searching for non-KYC. So just on a couple of those points you talked about, Toine. So obviously the AI one, and this is a lot of this educational for me. So on the difficulty adjustment, so a lot of those big miners, they're turning off their Bitcoin miners and just pivoting to the high frequency processing. Is that how that's working?
Yeah, that's basically it. You're seeing massive orders, or massive I guess blocks of miners hitting the secondary markets, and you're seeing like minimum order quantities of 500, minimum order quantities of 1,000. So that means that they're shedding weight like crazy, as quick as they can. And when it's a bear market, they're all kind of racing to the bottom. It's like the worst time to sell your hardware. If they just waited a little bit, it'd probably be better. But that's how these things go, right? It's now I've seen it at least twice, where the cyclicality of Bitcoin kind of, you see it's like history kind of repeats, or at least rhymes a little bit. So I feel like I know how to play it. I feel like I just have to stick to my game, and I'm already seeing the prices come down considerably, which I pass along to the end user, because again, I'm targeting a 2-month ROI. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, the price of my hardware goes up. So if you're looking at a 2-month ROI in the depths of a bear market, I think that's a pretty good investment, and that's why I'm building. But again, it's all kind of contingent on where you think Bitcoin's going to be in the next, I guess, epoch.
And then I guess, on the flip side of that, you think obviously when, if the price goes up to 100K, 125, 150K in the future, a lot of those miners will flip the switch again. Or do you think, AI is or just they'll just build bigger bigger mining rigs? Like, how do you think that'll play out?
It's hard to know. I would be lying if I told you I knew it was going to happen. What I think is going to happen is like we hit a Zeta hash like 6 months ago, and we haven't exceeded it. And some of that's bear market, some of that's converting to high frequency compute and selling hardware. But again, incentives are fluid. They're always moving. If like you said, if the price goes back to 180,000 Canadian or 125 US, yeah, I definitely think you're going to get over a Zeta hash. But everything's on a lag, right? Like the difficulty adjustment's a 10-day lag, so everything's kind of, it's always trying to achieve equilibrium. And the last couple difficulty adjustments, or at least the last big ones, were downward, which is good. It's healthy. I mean, it's helping the miners who are left on the network, kind of compensating them for what they're doing. But I wouldn't really be able to tell you. I think it just depends on like what that price is. Like there's a number where people go, holy shit, it would be stupid not to plug this thing in, right? Where there's always that number somewhere, and that machine, those machines that they're selling, people are buying them. There's like hydroelectric facilities in Paraguay and even in the US where it's free power basically. So there's a lot of people in Texas are running JPros, S19 JPros, 6-year-old units still, because they can, if you're at 3 cents a kilowatt hour power, you got a money printer you can pick up for a couple $100. So it seems like a no-brainer, and it's all contingent on electricity cost or what your secondary use is, if you have a secondary use for it.
Yeah, and I remember, I can't remember who said it. It was might have been Max Kaiser or someone, but they were talking about, the Bitcoin mining is always going to chase the cheapest, energy source. And and as even if a lot of those big centralized mining companies, if they flip the switch and go to the AI compute, it probably helps us in terms of decentralization of the network, and bringing other miners on board when there's more competition for mining that Bitcoin. So I think it's probably a good thing.
100%. Most of these data centers don't even have a single node running them. They'll have thousands and thousands of units, and the node will be at F2 pool or wherever, So you're looking, this is not how Satoshi kind of gamed out how mining works. Usually, or at least in his mind, it was one node, one miner, and that would have naturally decentralized things. But because of how lucrative it was to mine in the beginning, people started to, pool resources, invest in large data centers for ASICs. And if you're interested just in economic gain, then you don't really have a reason to run, a node and write your own templates and things like that. So with those incentives, we had a lot of mining pool centralization, and that's obviously not good for a distributed network. When you have centralization, you want things, you want things distributed, not centralized. So, yeah, I think it's going to help reverse some of that stuff. And again, I'm very optimistic about what the guys at Ocean Mining are doing with Datum and giving users the ability to rent hash and write your own block templates. That's a huge, like, we never really had a mechanism for combating the pool centralization until now. And all this hash rate you see, it's rented anyway, basically. I mean, F2 pool is, they're the miner. Everyone else is just a hasher, essentially, because they're not writing their own templates. So it kind of, there's a distinction there between a hasher and a miner. And I think that distinction is, right, is that machine hooked up to a node and is it writing its own templates? If not, then you're just selling your hash to a miner who's writing the templates for you. So I see the incentive in being a hasher because it simplifies things on the business side. it simplifies variant, or it eliminates variance, and with these FPPS pools. But yeah, you take that to its logical conclusion, and Bitcoin becomes very centralized with regards to the network budget, so the security budget.
Yeah. Well, listen, just on the business case, and I know if we focus a little bit on the eastern side of Canada, where we're all based, and where we have the conference. So you talked about Ontario and Quebec. What, like, if you were targeting a business to go out and say, like, look, this would really work for you, or this is where I think this could be beneficial. What businesses and what scenarios would you do you target in those scenarios, or in those cases?
Yeah, I really, so some of my best case studies have been rental income properties, both for the tenant and the landlord, and I'll go into that a little bit. I have clients on both sides. So I have landlords whose tenants pay the electricity or the gas, the utility bills. So there are income properties that I've serviced that already have electric resistive heating as their primary heat source. So when you replace those things with Bitcoin miners, the bill doesn't change. 1 watt is 1 watt. I think it's 3.64 BTU is, sorry, 1 watt is 3.64 BTU, or the opposite. Anyway, so there's a direct conversion. You're not losing when you turn on a Bitcoin miner, or when you turn on like a electric resistive space heater. It's the same heat, same amount, whatever goes in, the same amount of heat that comes out. So that's one thing I just want to make clear to your viewers, because a lot of people think, how efficient is it compared to an electric heater? It's like, it is an electric heater. It's just doing work on top of that electric heat. So those are the use cases that are really juicy, because, a landlord can squeeze an extra few $100s a month of rent out in the form of Bitcoin, while their tenant pays the electric bill. So basically the tenant's paying for the heat, the owner's getting the Bitcoin. And that's a lucrative scenario. But the flip side of that is, like, I have one client in Georgia who he's a student. He's like doing an undergrad, and he's technical, and he lives in the dorms, and the electricity and whatever food probably is all included in his expenses. So he heats his dorm room with a Bitcoin miner paid for by the university he goes to. I almost said the university. That would have been potentially bad. Yeah, he hasn't been found out yet. But again, you're allowed to run a space heater, so it's not any different. He's just utilizing the network to do some work with that heater, and it's pretty cool. He lives in a climate where it's warm most of the time, Georgia. So he actually has like a modified air conditioning window unit vent, where he has the miner shooting out for like 6 months, and then in the cold he'll just 180 reverse it, so that it's bringing fresh cold air in. It's heated through the miner and then pushing warm air into his unit. So yeah, it increases his comfort. He's getting another extra $100 a month with the unit that he has, which helps him pay for the meals and whatever else he needs. And so yeah, these are two use cases, kind of diametrically opposed to each other if you think about the incentives, but both are compelling in that someone's getting Bitcoin for free, more or less.
I think this kid's onto something.
Yeah, I think
so. Yeah, he's an IT guy.
Next thing, they'll be busted. There'll be a bunch of kids busted for running illegal mining in some.
I mean, hopefully not. If you can run a space heater, you can run a miner. So we had some more of that kind of FUD before the high frequency compute became a thing, right? You're boiling the oceans. Bitcoin mining's bad for the environment, and then please notice how that all evaporated as soon as all the AI high frequency compute stuff came out, because it's the same ocean boiling, but now it's okay, Yeah,
actually, I was going to touch on that, right? So mining basically is competing with AI data centers now, right, for power, because you got similar infrastructure, you got connectivity, right? Obviously, but one of the side effects or the products produced from that is obviously they both throw off enormous heat. So do you see the heat reuse playbook scaling kind of beyond? You talked about homes, you talked about dorms. Do you see it kind of this expanding to district heating, like a hospital or like a greenhouse or pools. I know there's some use cases for pools. Like, so where do you see where do you want 256 heat to be in 5 years? What are the latest and greatest stuff you're working on right now?
Great question. So I have every kind of summer, spring, I retool. It's kind of when my business becomes a little less busy. So what I've done in the last few months is I've retooled to take advantage of decentralization. And what I mean by that is building units that are the smallest possible module for a heater. So where do I see this going? When I first started doing this, I was doing 240 volts only, typically ducted into the air return of the furnace so that you could use the furnace to distribute the heat. That's still a great system, but actually I have one right off screen here. This is what I'm building.
I was going to ask you, like, how big are these things, right? So
yeah, so it weighs nothing. It's 12 pounds. This is about 700 watts, makes 32 terahash. These are fully 3D printed in-house by me. And what's great about these is you can hang them on the wall with a French cleat. You can position them where you want them. I set them all up in-house so that when it's time to install, you just have to set up the Wi-Fi, the onboard Wi-Fi that's in these cases. So the idea here is if you have I'm working on a quote for a building with 32 units. If you have electric resistive heat, then you can basically, wherever you have like a 1,000-watt baseboard heater, you can just replace it with one of these Bitcoin miners. What's nice about it is you have no electrical infrastructure changes that have to be made. No 240 volt installations, no sub panels, no increased infrastructure. So I like that. It's kind of it falls in line with that whole theme of like decentralization or strengthening the network through decentralization. So these little units are great because they're small, they're quiet, they're light, they're efficient. They can be transported easily. They can be set up in no time. So that's where I see things going. Like I actually see, I have an industrial design background, and modularity was a big theme when I was doing my thesis project and when I was in school. This is kind of like the most basic module for a hash rate here. It's a single board 120 volt unit. It's about half the heat output of a space heater. So what's great about that is you can put multiple of these on the same NEMA 515 circuit, which is like your standard wall outlet, which is every 10 feet on the wall you have an outlet for one of these things. So you can basically put the heat where it's needed. And then through the I have some automation, like smart home automation stuff that comes with these. You can have them schedule, you can monitor the wattage, you can integrate temperature sensors, or you can integrate them if you have a smart home thermostat. You can have it, your Nest thermostat, call the miners and say, hey, if it's 21, turn it on. If it's 23, turn it off. You can have them work with your natural gas furnace if you want, so that your natural gas furnace runs when the electricity is expensive, and then it turns off, and then the miners turn on when the electricity becomes cheap again if you have variable pricing. So it allows you to really program exactly, like you can solve, if you have a need for heat, and if it's like a complex need where it's different throughout the day, or, if you want it to be quieter or louder or warmer or cooler or whatever you want, you can program that in with the firmware I'm using. I'm really I'm a big fan of Lux OS firmware, and that's what I'm using on all my units, and allows me to basically change the behavior of the unit to target more of like a heater than it is a hasher. So instead of like these units by default, they target a hash rate and they'll raise and lower the fans and wattage to accommodate that. What I do is I try to make these more domesticated by focusing on acoustics first and foremost, making sure everything is 50 decibels or under, which is about as loud as a dishwasher. So very easy to have even in the bedroom beside you. And then, distributing them, decentralizing them in the home. Big problem I had in my house here is it's a 3-story townhome. And obviously the thermostat can only exist in one place, which is the main floor. So the upstairs will be overshot and the downstairs will be undershot in terms of temperature. So when I started, deploying these hash rate heaters in the house, that's the first problem it solved. There was a delta T of 6 degrees between the top floor and the bottom floor. Yeah, so like downstairs freezing, upstairs boiling. Old home, old windows, but using hash rate heaters mitigated that because you can just put them where they're needed. So it works out that there's 3 in the basement, 2 on the main floor, 1 upstairs. Go figure.
Wow, no, that's great. And yeah, the smart home integration thing, that's obviously everybody's interested in that right now. But the do you have an app, or do you just do you work it through the Nest, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if you don't have a smart home thermostat, I include it's kind of like a hub. It's called a Zigbee hub, and it allows you to coordinate all of your smart devices. So smart outlets with smart temperature sensors, with, so you can basically say, okay, if this, then that kind of behaviors, scheduling, you can input your electricity price and it'll tell you exactly how much it's costing you per day, how much it's costing you per month. So you can have really good data if you want to alter how your system operates. But again, it's designed so that you just plug it in on day one, and that's it. Even the pool and the payouts is all handled. I just basically set up a pool and payout system through Coinos and Ocean Mining. And then when the unit arrives on site for the client, then they just have to change their password and put in their email address as the recovery email. And now they've basically assumed control over that unit. And again, nothing's set in stone. If you are knowledgeable about mining and you have your own pool set up or whatever, that's great. You can do that. But it arrives set up on day one. So you don't have to, learn about pools and payouts and Bolt 12 Lightning, wallets and things like that. It's ready to go, ready to rock and roll. You don't even have to have Bitcoin experience. I have clients in their 70s who are getting their auto withdrawals to their ShakePay wallet, and every month they convert it to cash and pay their electric bill. They're happy with that.
Wow, I think that's where we need to be to get more people on board with using Bitcoin, get them more comfortable, I think. But yeah,
but I'd love to get Toine's opinion on something kind of contentious a little bit that's going on in the community, right? It's going on a lot of conversations around decentralization and the importance of obviously mining and running your own node and that whole ethos, which I think is what kind of you live by. But I just want to kind of bring it back and just because I know you've posted a fair bit about BIP 110, right, which is a Bitcoin kind of initiative and improvement that's been proposed, right? So for those listeners that have tuned out, or are not aware, so this is kind of the whole op return drama, right? So of trying to limit the arbitrary data on chain, and so I just wanted to and the potential that it could become a contentious kind of soft fork. So just wanted to get your thoughts on will it activate? Why does it matter? Because I guess the idea is that you want to keep nodes cheap so regular people can run them, right? But just wanted to get your thoughts on BIP 110, where you stand on that.
Yeah, that is the idea. Keeping nodes cheap, that's one of them. The other thing is keeping the network healthy. The UTXO set has completely blown out since 2022 when ordinals were introduced, which is not healthy long term. I actually just anecdotally, I in 2022 I was running a Lightning routing node, so I could make some risk-free sats, or so I thought. But I had a 1 terabyte hard drive and about half a Bitcoin on my my routing node, so I could facilitate transactions, and didn't check it for a couple of days. I logged in and it was dead. I just couldn't get in. The hard drive completely filled up with all the ordinal spike. Like I took my eyes off it for a little bit. Couldn't get in. Couldn't get my Bitcoin. Basically, I had to get help from a friend to recover it all, because it's not just like inputting a seed phrase. You have to have channel backups and channel state backups. So, and then you have to have those in order to force close the channel so that the Bitcoin can be returned back to your wallet. So it was a big headache, and it was one of these things where it's like, why did this happen? I looked into it more. I'm like, oh, what are these? I thought NFTs were an Ethereum thing. What is this? And use cases. It's like, no, it's not. There is no use case, in my opinion. And I came to this slowly. I originally thought, oh, cool, let it do more. But again, there's a cost for everything, and I experienced that cost personally. The difference between a 1 terabyte hard drive and a 4 terabyte hard drive is not. It's huge. It's a big
it's
cost.
material. Yeah.
And we live in a first world country. Think about someone in Argentina, or someone in Turkey. It's almost like now they can't run a node anymore because it's 3 months of salary or something. So there's that. But there's also, Swiss Army knives are cool, but they are not a good knife. They're not a good pair of pliers. They're not a good corkscrew, right? They kind of do everything haphazardly. And I think that's a good metaphor for what's going on in Bitcoin. Like the whole op return thing, op if, op not, like this stuff was introduced when Taproot came out, and it was a bug, right? It was never intended. Bitcoin was intended as money. It was never intended as a, NFT carrier or distribution or runes or tokens on top of Bitcoin. That was never envisioned. So coming from like a systems mechanical engineering kind of place, it's like if you want to optimize for a use case, then you're going to want to disinclude everything else that could water down that use case. So I came at it slowly. I thought, oh my God, this is like a crazy thing they're suggesting, like big network change and all that. But then I realized that change was pushed through in 2022 in a stealth manner. And what BIP 110 basically does is gets it back to what it was before that change broke everything with regards to the UTXO set and spam and all that. So, people are talking about semantics. Oh, it's not spam. It's not spam. It's data. It's like, well, it's really easy to just differentiate. If it's your node and you don't want it on there, it's spam. So giving users the ability to create their own block templates to prioritize, if they want to prioritize spam, cool. It's up to you. If you want to use your datum node to mine as much spam, you have the ability to do that. So to me, that was clear that the authors of this software weren't trying to force you in a direction. They were just trying to give you choice, and they were hoping that the users would make the right choice by prioritizing it as money, because that's the killer use case for the blockchain. That's every other use case for the blockchain can be done better with a non-distributed ledger, like a Pirate Bay or something like that. So that's kind of my take on it. And again, it's very easy to see big names talking shit about it and going, yeah, that's right. But then you look into it a little bit more and it's just like, oh, you're getting financially incentivized by company XYZ. Okay, well, now your opinion counts for less because you didn't disclose that financial incentive when you made this strongly opposed statement to BIP 110. So, if you, at least from my research, like, the Space Cat Hodlknot, he's done an incredible series on what happened behind the scenes at Core and why BIP 110 kind of was the solution to the mess that they created. And, all of that stuff, all the DEI hiring stuff and all, it's kind of gross. And it's really crazy that it was allowed to happen, or I guess it just happens, no one's allowing it. It's just incentives find their ways, I guess. And yeah, that's my opinion. I'm very much pro BIP 110. I run a business that's pro BIP 110. So I prioritize the monetary use case that way.
What's your opinion, Wasim?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, like, at the end of the day, like, nobody really controls the Bitcoin network per se, right? And what goes in there, right? And then, but I do believe in kind of free market. And at the end of the day, the market's going to decide with the use cases that make sense. And if this one doesn't, then it will die on the vine. And right, it was a nice, thanks for showing up. Great experiment, right? It created a whole bunch of, as you call it, spam on the network. But then we'll move on to, and then maybe gravitate back to the real use case, which is money.
Mm-hmm. That's my hope. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be BIP 110. I mean, if Core just allowed you to change the data carrier size or remove the ridiculous, 100x increase or whatever they did with their it went from 80 kilobytes to, I think, 100 megabytes. So yeah, if the reference client, whoever's writing the reference client, allows the end user to dictate what's going in the blocks, then great. There's no need for BIP 110. And the whole thing with BIP 110 being a temporary soft fork is, again, that I think demonstrates the goodwill that these people are doing. That they're just trying to be like, hey, I don't think this is the right direction, but I'm going to propose this so that if I'm wrong, then basically we can go back to where we were a year ago. But it gives people the opportunity to kind of voice their opinion. And you're seeing tons of BIP 110 compliant blocks being mined, like multiple per day now. It was like one a month, and it was like 3 in a week, and now it's like multiple per day. So I think you're seeing adoption growing. You're seeing the Bitcoin knots node count growing. And again, those are a lot harder to spoof than the Core node counts, just because I talk to people like Matt Hill and even like Umbral's stats are way harder than to spin up a VM and kind of run these fake nodes or whatever you would call them. 100 nodes controlled by the same user. That's not decentralization. That's theater. So it's a lot harder to fake those numbers with things like Umbral and Start9.
The future is bright, but it's not a straight line.
Definitely. Yeah, it never is with Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin has this amazing quality of doing the opposite of what everyone thinks it's going to do. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Should probably end it on that note, right?
Yeah, I think so. So
Maybe
I think,
continue
yeah,
at the conference.
that's 38 minutes. So I think we don't want
Goes
to. Yeah, it does. It goes fast. So listen, Toine, really appreciate your time. One plug I want to get in before is you're going to be at the Canadian Bitcoin conference in October. We're going to have you having a demonstration. What are you going to demonstrate whenever you're there?
Yeah, you know what? I've done every kind of unit you can imagine. 240 volt inline fans, stock fans, big, small. And I'm really set on this form factor. I just keep on coming back to this because it allows you to, so you got cable management, you can hang it. Something I didn't talk about is you can just take this cover off, and then this front cover slides down, so there's no tools required to do this, and you can swap the hash boards out with newer versions of the hash. Like you can go from a J Pro to a K Pro to an S21 or an XP without having to change anything. The idea behind this was based on the fact that I saw this rotation from ASIC mining to high frequency compute with the publicly traded miners. So I built this as like a future-proof version so that you can upgrade the hardware, just swap things out. I want users to be able to take advantage of cheap hardware showing up on eBay. So maybe in 2 years, if you want to swap your K Pro or J Pro board with an XP or an S21, that's something you can do with these machines. And as far as I know, I'm the only one who's doing this, and it was it was a way to kind of eliminate obsolescence and also allow you to do the most with the least, like do the most amount of good or most amount of work with the least amount of capital, least amount of time. So not having to throw out the old and reset up a new machine, like same control board, same IP address, same pool, everything's the same. It's just now you're getting an extra 15, 20 terahash for the same amount of wattage. That was the idea behind these units. So I love these for that fact as well, other than the other things I mentioned. But yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the future proofing or the future compatibility of these miners.
Perfect. So listen, we'll end it on that. If anybody has any questions for Toine, send us a message or drop it in the chat or send us a connection online. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, best way is 256heat.com. I include a free quote or a free kind of heat audit process is what I call it. So I can evaluate your needs and your wants and your infrastructure and your home and understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then propose a system or multiple systems to accomplish that goal. So there's a contact me page on my site. I'm also more active in the summer than I am in the busy season, but x.com. So I'm Tron Mon Goner. If you just type in Toine, you should find me. But those are the two places you can probably find me best.
Perfect. Well, it was great talking to you, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise.
We learn lots every time we talk to you, Toine. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you guys. See you soon.
Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.